From the outside, the church looked almost like a really fancy ski lodge, all dark wood and exposed beams. It had probably been built by one of the architects responsible for all the McMansions on that side of town. The wood was lighter on the inside, which had a high arch ceiling and a sparkly modern-looking chandelier hanging down, almost like they wanted people to forget it was a church. My family was Jewish, so the only church I'd ever been to was the Catholic one on my side of town, where all the kids I went to school with had their first communions. We'd just moved to town, so I didn't really know anyone, but one of the kids in my class had invited everyone to his. Mom said I had to go if I wanted to make friends, though it didn't really work out like that. The Catholic church had looked more like what I'd expect a church to look like: white on the outside, with a crucifix at the altar, and lots of stained glass windows. This church looked almost nothing like it, except for the fact that there were 2 columns of pews that ended with an altar. At the foot of that altar was a coffin, and in that coffin was Hayden, probably also wearing a suit. By the time we showed up, the place was almost full. Rachel had taken off to sit with her friends as soon as we walked in the door. Shocker. And so it was just me and Mom walking up and down the aisles, trying to find seats. The first few rows were filled with Hayden's family. I saw his parents and Ryan, his older brother, as well as some aunts and uncles and cousins I recognized from the times I'd gone to Hayden's house over the holidays. Since my family didn't celebrate Christmas, Hayden would invite me over to have dessert with them after they'd finished opening their presents and having their big fancy dinner. Hayden was always grateful if I showed up, since it got him away from the table faster. His mom was always on his case about how much he ate, and Christmas was the worst. If he even looked at a second piece of pie, she'd give him a sharp look and say, "Do you really need that, Hayden?" But Hayden would never fight back. He wasn't like that. He'd do anything to keep the peace. They'd never deserved him, his family. The rows behind Hayden's family were filled with obnoxious rich people from his side of town and their obnoxious kids, friends of Ryan's who'd spent years torturing Hayden, some at Ryan's discretion. They all thought life would always be easy for them, as it was right now. Rich jocks like Jason yonder who hired tutors to get them through the hard classes. Girls like Stephanie Castor, with nose jobs and personal trainers who would have been beautiful without either, but who now all looked exactly alike. I mean, they were still cute, don't get me wrong, but it wasn't the same. It made me furious seeing them all sitting there, acting like they were so sad, when all of this was at least partly their fault. How could I feel so out of place at my own best friend's funeral? Mom put her hand on my shoulder. The weight of it was comforting. I was glad I didn't have to be here alone. "We've got to sit somewhere, sweetie." She steered me toward the back of the room, into one of the pews near the church door. "I know you want to sit closer, but they're going to start soon and there just isn't room." I nodded, reminding myself to unclench my fists. "You'll need to check in with Rachel. She's going to arrange for you guys to get a ride home, okay?" "I'm so sorry," she said. Sure. It wasn't surprising, but I wasn't upset by it. Mom was always having to take off early or come home late. When Dad left for good, she'd gone back to school nights to become a nurse practitioner, and since the hospital was understaffed, she'd signed up for as much overtime as she could get, especially since Dad was a kind of slacker about sending checks. We weren't in bad shape, she told Rachel and me, but we weren't working with a whole lot of cushion either. Not like the people sitting at the front of the church. I struggled to get comfortable on the wooden bench as everyone began to settle down. It was already 15 minutes after the service was supposed to start, and I could still hear people coming in behind me. For a guy with basically one friend, his funeral was pretty crowded.